Hello, everyone. There are times when you meet somebody and you feel that maybe the world is a better place because of somebody like this and someone who restores your faith in humanity. Today, we have the pleasure of meeting somebody like that. Before I share her name, I want to introduce her as the person who pioneered Makkar Sahayavani, which is today popularly known as 1098, the number which is dedicated to child protection helpline. For more than 3 decades, she has worked tirelessly to protect children, provide education to children through her NGO, which is Global Concerns Area. If you go to the Nagar slum, you can see the Children's Creativity Center even today, protecting and educating children from vulnerable communities. And then there is protecting women from gender-based violence, human trafficking, and abuse, and whatnot. Many of us choose to not even think about these things that happen around us. But here is somebody who's dedicated her life and somebody who not just changes lives, she's literally saved lives. And it's my pleasure and honor to welcome Ms. Brinda Adige today, a very senior social worker, activist, and a celebrity in her own right, today to join us in the DI1 to talk about safety. I don't know, ma'am, it's a pleasure and a honor to have you with us today during this DI month. Today, I would like to talk to you about safety for women in the workplace and beyond. I've heard stories. Rather, these are things that I've heard about you from other people, that you just burst into the police commissioner's office, and then there is a central minister who's trying to tell you something, and you just bang the phone down on him. What gives you courage? Facts, truth. Somebody has to raise their voice, and the next question is: after I raise my voice, or when I do raise my voice, do I lose anything, or does somebody gain something? And even if I do lose, is it more than the person who's gaining something? That's it. So what does safety mean to you? Okay.
So some people will say that, if you enter into an office like Questcom, you're safe. But then you are asking and saying, that is safety for me as a person, my being that is coming in over there. The other aspect would be psychological safety. What does the psychological safety mean? Does the space where you have entered give you the courage to speak? Was that a psychological safety? Was it? Then the next would be, okay, fine, I've got my courage and I've spoken up. But there are still others who don't really speak up. Now what? So the next part of it is the safety that every institution must and should extend is the belief that I will be heard. So I can always speak up, but who's going to hear me? And once you hear me, do you trust me and believe me what I am speaking about? And after that, is there any retaliation? Will you humiliate me? Now, when all of this is absent, retaliation is absent, humiliation is absent, and there is strong presence of me being heard and me being trusted for what I am saying, that is safety altogether. So it's not simple components and aspects of safety, but safety is a comprehensive component where all of this works together. They're not in silos.
And we spoke about physical and psychological safety. I would like to ask you, what do you think are certain silent struggles that employees might carry into the workplace, which should give them that hesitation to reach out for help?
See, all of us carry several silent struggles. This could be family conflicts, it could be physical health, mental health, probably financial stress, stress with other issues in the family. It could also be loneliness, struggling with grief. Many of these struggles are not something that come up in our discussions or talk when we are having at the end of the year performance evaluation, or talking about performance records or deadlines. The person coming in is an entire individual. Now, this individual is not just performing a role. And when we look at the person performing just that role, then the silent struggles are undermined and sidelined. But performance, quality would be there only when you look at all of these silent struggles, which the person is anyway, carrying along those challenges, which nobody talks about. Maybe they don't want to talk about it. But as leaders, as managers, we also want to be conscious of all of these for every employee. Because that is when she or he feels valued, heard, and also feels that, okay, I am being encouraged to, and I am being asked all of this to perform based on also the realities that the person knows. So that's the dignity that I extend to every employee. And that is not charity. That is part of my work ethics and ethos of my organization. But it is consciously something that all of us have to remember to continue in our interactions. Respect and dignity are two sides of a coin. I can't say yes to one and no to the other one. Those interactions, irrespective of my struggles, even if you know them, you want to have that respect and dignity when we have those interactions. I think that is very, very important too.
What I understand is, from what I hear from you, is that we should have a holistic view and not look at like a myopic view of the employee is not something that will create psychological safety, is what you're saying. A holistic view is what you're talking about. But how can organizations go beyond their four walls? And wouldn't that require organizations to go beyond their four walls if we have to look at a person as a whole?
Yeah, absolutely. So we are not even looking at walls. These are all structures that are there. You have compliance in place, you have policies in place, you have committees in place. Now, we also say that the organization prioritizes on all of it, but we also know that they are being compliant with the laws of the land. Here we go back to this entire work ethos, which has nothing to do with how your office is. It has everything to do with me interacting with the other person so that they bring their authentic selves to the office. Often what happens is the moment I enter here, I may be someone who's very talkative, so I will now say, no, somebody's going to judge me for being talkative. So, let's not talk about it. Let's just nod our heads for everything. So when you're telling holistic, this holistic is not something that everybody understands. What do we understand? We understand that respect is not charity. Talking and interacting with somebody with dignity and holding that space which is theirs without being judgmental, that is what my office is all about. My organization is all about. Sorry, not my office. My organization is all about. And I think that part of it is to be told day in and day out. It is not something that you will do during a DIE, a DVI month. It is something that you will do 365, 366 days of the year. Culture. It's a culture. And that culture has to be led by the people from the management, right up there from your COO, CEO, CFO, and all the managers and the supervisors. Because after all of these compliance is the people who build this culture of respect, dignity, and this feeling, because safety is also a feeling. And that feeling is not going to come to me automatically as soon as I enter into an office. It's a feeling that begins the moment I say I'm going to my office. And so all your traffic jams and your potholes, all of that is just by the way. The feeling of safety is I'm reaching my office. Everything will be fine. Of course, there are deadlines and there are assignments and reports to be given. But I am here in my office. And that is a feeling that will come only when those interactions come from the leadership. Often people will say top down is not the right thing. But It should always be coming up from down and learn and live. But in this particular instance, it has to be from the top. Because you and I must understand that it is power. And that power is the dynamics with which I work. Oh, I am so and so. I come from so and so. And this power translates in many different ways. Maybe my gender, my religion, the language I speak, the clothes I wear, the food I eat, caste I belong to. People will say these things not here. But we said we are in India. And these things are very subtle, very strong, very prominent. I can't pinpoint and say she did this or he said like that. We just know from the behavior. That is why when you look at the posh definition, the preamble of posh is the impact on the like.
So I can't help but think that we are not talking about just safety anymore. It is already flowed into engagement. If you're talking about engagement, then you're talking about performance. We are talking about attention. It's just all one more picture. What would you tell us as an, we are multi-generational, multicultural, multi-location, huge organization, diverse in many ways, and we have people out there working with clients. What would this translate to in terms of how do we create psychological safety?
See, like he said, safety is a feeling. But that said, we also need to look at the due process. What is the rule of law that is followed? What is the different components that you follow, especially values? Now, being punctual is a value. It doesn't matter whether I'm 18 years old or I'm 58 years old. That is part of my culture. So in this way, we want to also tell that because you spoke about multi-generational, right now there is a huge gap between Gen Z and, say, all of us. Their definitions of discipline, their definitions of deadlines is very, very different from ours. And we expect them to fit into that ambit. And that also brings about a lot of conflict. So we want to ask ourselves to say, what are these common elements? And those common elements absolutely are ones that are universal. Respect means you address the person in this manner. You do not address the person with an adjective that I have decided to. Because usually we look at the present generation as having an adjective and then saying somebody's name. And that's disrespectful. It's not part of my organization culture. And it's a simple no. So we want to look at that. But we also know that a large number of people come with a lot of conditioning and internalization of behavior. And that behavior requires to change. Now, in my office over here, I will never litter. I will not spit. Do I decide to do all those things right outside my offices? So I have seen that there are some companies that literally din it into the employees, that you don't do this because you are a so-and-so employee all through. There's a role that you play here as an employee. There's a role you play as a father, as a husband, as a brother, as a son, as a friend. But at the end of the day, you are a citizen. And so that is something which is a responsibility of the organization. And that is how we also tell them that you are responsible for your own safety. You're responsible for the other person's safety. And you're also responsible for safety out there. So where does the speak up come from? Do I talk about it? What do people think about me? And that is again a culture. And it's a culture, like I said, it's not going to be one day, 2 days. It is to be think. This has to be internalized. And if there are spaces where we need to have discussions and debates, why not? Because if we are not going to be talking with our younger generation, we are not going anywhere. And I'm telling this because I have learned a lot from my own children to be what I should be and what I shouldn't be. Of course, there are lines that we will not cross. That is there. But done. I think these conversations are important. Because like I said, power works differently. We, as you know, when we were young, we didn't do like, oh, no. We don't want anybody's nostalgic young age stories. We only want to look at to say, what should I do here and now that reflects me as a staff or an employee of this organization? Simple. It doesn't matter. Anything else doesn't matter. My age doesn't matter. My gender doesn't matter. My religion and my caste doesn't matter. What matters is I am a staff of this organization where safety is rule number one. Respect is rule number one. Dignity is rule number one. It's all rolled together. There's nothing else. Say, you do this first and then this will come. It's all rolled together. It's the character of my organization.
No. We spoke about silent struggles that an employee might be going through outside in their work site. I mean, one is not limited to the workplace alone. There is home, there is family, there are friends, and whatever they may be going through. So when they step into the office, and how do they make how does that impact, and how will you does it flow over from outside if there is silent struggle that they're going through? When they step into the office, it's like to flow through. That is what we spoke about. Now, is there some experience you can share with us? And I also realized that sometimes as leaders, we may not notice that. Managers may not notice that. For us, it's just what's happening in the workplace. We said some experience, some weird story, which way help us understand this whole English.
Yes. So I just share a case. This is, like you mentioned, any person, irrespective of their gender, might be going through something like this. But because we know that women suffer these kind of aspects even more, I want to share a case study about this woman in a senior position. And she was going through a very difficult divorce. She had a 7-year-old child with her. And of course, we do not want to bring all of these stories to office, but sometimes all these things just kind of, you mentioned it in passing, or you've come late, or you want to go early, you want to go and attend court case, you want to go for a mediation, you don't know. You might, and somehow everybody in the office just has a little bit information about my things. We might say confidentiality and all that, but somebody does have. Now, she found that there was another person, almost equally her senior, but in the same team, trying to just out of curiosity, how senior? How senior? They manager roles. So this particular lady, in the beginning, thought, she was seeing things. Because sometimes what happens, you're going through so much of mental trauma that small things, you might, extend it and say, the person didn't do like that. Maybe I only saw it like that. No, I'm sure he never met it like that. Did I push my chair closer? Sometimes these wheelchairs, you want to go left and it will go all 360 degrees and come back. So, first couple of days, in fact, weeks, she really did not associate this to be any kind of harassment, and certainly not sexual harassment. But later on, when the talk became a little more, like she would come and talk to her and say, oh, you went to court today. It's so difficult, no? When this husband with whom you have lived for 10 years makes these kind of statements. So she said, I wouldn't like to talk about this. That is done and finished. No, you share it with me. And so puts his hand on her. We are colleagues. We both of us came to the office together and we've seen so many challenges. We've surpassed those challenges and reached these spaces. So it's okay. And she said, no, don't touch me. I want to go. I want to do my work. Then at another time coming and saying that, who's going to pick up your child? You're not worried. Your child has to be picked up from school. And just now you told me that your car is not, you came by auto this morning. So come, I will take you and I pick up the child and I will drop you at office also. And she said, no, I don't want it. I go on my own. Then Now, this was all very helpful, if we may use the word, from the outside. But after a certain point of time, it becomes a little retaliating. Oh, so women like you think you all can do everything on your own, independently. Taunts. What does this woman do when she is getting taunted over here? She's also struggling back there at home. And we must understand the odds. They are not somebody when you go first hearing, second hearing, the case is done. In this case, she also went through mediation for nearly 8-9 months. So this is before you go and sit before the judge. So the mediation has a lot more other challenges. But with that, you're also having this challenge, which many times women will blame themselves to say, I should have realized it earlier. I didn't realize it that time. So this person coming and now saying, oh, all those things that I was talking that time, you were okay. I brought you that coffee and came. That time it was okay. But that time the realization was you brought coffee for 2 people and you gave me also coffee. There was nothing separately done for me. And so we need to understand that when somebody gets to know about a woman's personal or family conflicts or what she's going through, assumption is she needs a man to support her, help her, go through all this. At the end of the day, sorry to use this phrase, but see it with me, because I was so helpful with you. And if I am not somebody like that, then you taunt and say, oh, Pativeta, ye wo. All of this takes its toll on this woman. Let's keep this in mind and not, maybe then she is retaliating differently with the rest of the team and the office. And then we go around talking and saying, she thinks no end of herself. If she raises her voice, then she is aggressive. But if there was a man in the same position raising the voice, he is assertive. The same situation, we use different phrases when it is a woman and when it is a man. So when we talk of safety, we are talking of safety also as a duty for every staff, that if you have some information and that person has not shared the information directly with you and me, but I do have that information, it's for me to be keeping it confidential, because that respect and interactions with dignity comes with that confidentiality, not simply as IC members alone, but as staff and as employees and as colleagues with each other, because that is very, very important. There is this whole thing, the retaliation that's also coming from a political side. Oh, if women have rights, why not men? Both women and men have rights under the Constitution. So sometimes people, the recent judgment by the Supreme Court saying that inequality will be bred if I give you menstrual leave. You cannot breed inequality because equality is yours and my sovereign right, fundamental right. So nobody can say it will breed this. It will only breed discrimination. It will normalize discrimination if you speak this language. So the language that we want to speak is everybody is equal. That has to be respected. But what must not be done is, if I have information, I don't pass amends. No rumors to be passed, because this rumor and gossip again harms and hurts not just the person you're talking about, but the morale of everybody else down here. Because the one thing that I might get to know when somebody is doing this is, let us take care of this person. That person remains in my team, all our work suffers. So you want to tell people that irrespective of what conventional, stereotypical learning that all of us come with, when I had entered into QuestCon, if I might use that word now, yes, is to say, this is a place that is making me a better person. A person who is not only happy because I know this is a safe place, I know I feel safe, I know I feel respected, I know that there will be no discomfort here, but also I have a duty and a responsibility to ensure another person does not feel any of these things because of me. That's all. In this particular case, we might sometimes see, oh, managers are like that. But a woman has reached that space, hard work, diligence, dedication, and remember sacrifice. Because irrespective of being CEO or anybody, as a woman, we all multitask. Nobody can say, oh, my home is taken care of by AI. I simply have to go and do it. Nobody else will take care of it. Some people may do more, some people may do less, but I have to do. And there are tensions there. There are relationships that I have to hold tight. My partner, my boyfriend, my husband, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, my children. Sometimes the driver, the gardener, their home help. Let's understand that all of these and that ecosystem needs maintenance. It needs maintenance. Yeah, what is right? And that pivotal point is this woman. Right. And everybody might say many things, but remember, this woman is multitasking. We are not inherently wired. We have internalized and conditioned this. It's a learned behavior. So men can learn, trans persons can learn. It's very can learn. Everybody can learn. So there is something that also came out of what I was hearing. Two things actually. One is no one is an exception when it comes to facing challenges, especially harassment in the workplace, safety in the workplace, or anywhere for that matter. It would be great if, is there any story about, and there is this mindset that, I'm so and so and I'm safe. I somehow believe, of my experience, what I've seen is that it is not true. It can happen to anyone. No one is an exception. That is something that I want to, when you with your vast experience, I'm sure you would have seen somebody at a very senior level, maybe in an executive level, or maybe it could be a minister, or it could be a IPS officer, I don't know. Anything that you can share with us would be great. The other one is that we want also to your advice on how do managers react, or if the way, when the previous situation we were talking about, when they know that there is gossiping going on, and when they know that there is one of the team members who's going through a journey, and somehow others know, and there is something happening because of that, and how the environment has become hostile for this person. As a manager, how do I intervene without stepping on anybody's toes? Okay, two things over here. One is the case we talk about it later, but we'll begin with the last part of the question. The last part of the question is whether I am a manager or I'm just a colleague. If there are rumors and there's some kind of gossip happening, don't lend your ear, because that means unencouraging. So if I'm speaking something which does not concern both of us, right? It doesn't concern our work, but it does concern somebody else that we don't like, because it usually happens like that. Your professionalism must rise. And to say, hey, let's not talk about this just now, okay? I am not interested in these kind of things, so just let's leave it. Now, sometimes the other person who's speaking also speaks from a position of power. And this position of power can be anything. It can be that the person comes from a rich family, an influential family, or is someone who's the best worker in the office. So those positions of power are many. They make our seniority, is the first to come and the last to go. So many kinds of power play and dynamics I hear. But everything said and done, this might increase. It might expand. And at that time, I think it is important for the manager to call out. Many times managers and supervisors wait, let the complaint or the report come to me. Exactly. When I know that I am being talked about, and I am already struggling, like I told you in the other previous case, I am in my thinking, will I aggravate it if I go there? Yeah. Or will you not give me an assignment because you think I'm like this?
Yep.
I'm capable. I'm a capable person. Professionally, I'm very capable. I learn to keep the things away and sit here and be me to do that work. But these are also thoughts. I'm human. So I'm saying that I know there's a new project coming and I badly want to be on that because it's right after my heart. But if I take this as a complaint or report it, even informally, even verbally, what will the manager think of me? Will this be an excuse for me to be out? So in these instances, even if there is no complaint, today laws are asking seniors, leaders, managers, and supervisors to be proactive. So if you've heard this somewhere, I think it is time for a gentle warning. Number one. Right. Next, call out. Not call out and say, all of us know that you're gossiping about Brinda. Not like that. Don't call out my particular name. When we say call out, say that the milieu or the atmosphere and the ambience over the last 30, 40 days have changed or shifted. Right. And a large part of it is certain rumors going around about certain colleagues of ours. So you always want ownership. They are my colleagues. They are my friends. I sit here 12 hours working with them, almost more than what I might be doing at my home. So you want to extend that respect and that dignity. At no point can I cut corners where respect and dignity is concerned. And this will stop today. And it has to be said that. Somebody might think and say, oh, but this is too much of a dictator. Well, yes, I waited. 2 days, 3 days, 5 days. It didn't stop. And whoever is initiating this, we want that we will not take this lightly anymore. There should be that warning that goes. Because many times it is like, I know the CEO. I know the CDO. I know his father. I know his girlfriend. So because of those connections also, I throw my weight around. Yeah. But what is happening to the morale of not only the person in question, but also the others? We need to ask ourselves. Because productivity has anyway come down now. Because this many minutes that I am gossiping about somebody, anyway I have done nothing. I've not done any work for those 5-10 minutes. No, 5-10 minutes into 20 people is a lot of time. Yeah. And that productivity, as a company, we cannot afford. Yeah. We are not here to say, okay, we indulge in these things. It's, small talk. It is light gossip. It is not harming anybody. Keep in mind, there is no light gossip. It does harm. You may not see the harm right there in front of you, but it is harming. And that is why it is important for leaders, managers, and supervisors not only be proactive, but be courageous. Go through the right channels. Sometimes managers will say, this is my team, I must sort it out here. Don't sort it out. Because there's no way you can sort this out. It has to have other people trained, right, to address this. And there are people in your office who are trained. So get them into confidence and address it. Because at the end of the day, it is not just my team. It is the company. And this company is made up of this team. So if this team decides that I know everything or the leader knows everything and you've not been trained to mitigate that particular issue, you want trained people there. And trained people doesn't mean you are disrupting the institution and the organization. You are disrupting something that is against the institution's ethos. Rumor and gossip is against the ethos. I want to disrupt it. Yes, I have to be courageous about it. Remember, and being by being courageous, what you're also saying is, I'm not allowing for something like this to repeat itself. See, many times we learn from examples. We go into the ditch and come out and say, okay, now we will not go into this. So that repetition will not happen. And that's how I uphold the principles of that organization.
Like, Nitin, one common misconception, or I would say a myth, is that safety is meant for some big journey, or it's meant for, only the day to uh, understand about what is safe, what is not. Even during sessions, for example, even awareness sessions, I have heard people say that, it's just a waste of time. I don't have a choice, so I'm sitting. And well, I believe that may not be the case. Is age or a designation or somebody's, who they are, their gender, is that such a big thing when it comes to safety?
See, safety is everybody's concern and everybody's right. So it doesn't matter what age, it doesn't matter their cadre, their position, their gender. Nothing of this matters. What is important is for everybody to have information. Know your rights. Duties, of course, is already told. But remember that for too long we've been talking about women's empowerment.
Yep.
We need men also to be empowered. We need trans persons to be empowered. We want all human beings to be empowered. That said, everybody must also remember that being empowered does not mean that only a certain section of people in the organization or in a company might be victims of this form of harassment. There could be managers, CEOs, CFOs. Anybody can also be a victim. But that is what I spoke about in the earlier discussion, that the power play. Sometimes the first question that we will ask ourselves as a CEO who has become a victim of this kind of harassment, can I speak about it? What will people think if I speak about this then? Will you say that, why did you not look after and save yourself? After all, you're a man. After all, you're a woman. After all, anybody can be a victim. And it is important the minute you feel discomfort, you may not want to make a formal complaint, but raise it as an informal issue. Raise it at the right level. Whoever that might be, your presiding officer, it could be one of your IC members, it could be anybody. Raise it, have a chat, because that feeling of discomfort is not defined. That feeling of discomfort comes from inside you, and you need to trust that feeling. Don't say, does it tick off this? Does it tick off that? Because, like I said, feeling safety is not something that I will look at things and I will know. So if you think that, okay, this is discomforting for me, well, I invited the person to my office, I had the discussion and I had the conversation. I was asking for a performance evaluation, even though the person was on the other side, made me at this position feel uncomfortable. I want to raise this. Because prevention is any day better than addressing it and now going through my entire law. So don't wait and say, I'm at this position, can I raise the issue? Raise it. Because that also extends that trust in other people. To say a feeling of discomfort has been raised informally, because all of you know that IC, you can raise it informally also. You don't have to have a written complaint all the time. Informally raise it, and the IC has to proactively ensure that this is diluted, that it is addressed, taken care of. That is the trust that gets built with the organization. Because they know that you believe me and you will address it.
Right. So you're talking about prevention and prohibition, not just redressal.
Yes, redressal is anyway at the end. When we are talking of the ethos of a company making you feel safe, it means that you've already begun to address prevention.
Right.
And then you're saying you can come up and speak to me informally. I am not going to judge you. I'm going to listen to you. I will believe you. You've already entered the phase of prohibition. So maybe you don't even want to go all the way to redressal, because let's keep this in mind with all rights, compliance, priorities of an organization. We spend a lot of time in this or any complaint. And that is manpower, energy, productivity, everything's on a standstill. Right. And you don't want that. We want every employee to reach their potential to the hilt and be creative, innovative, contribute not only for their own accomplishments and performances, but for the larger performance of the organization.
We would always speak about fragmented benevolence, where a complete system is not available when somebody is in distress, especially if a woman is in distress. There are many systems and practices, policies available for help and support. We spoke about mention prohibition and redress, and all of that is despite them being available. You have mentioned about fragmented benevolence. I wanted to understand a little more about it and how that weaves into the workplace. How is it relevant to the workplace?
Okay. Fragmented benevolence is well-intentioned initiatives that most companies take. And the intentions are really good. One part of it may be compliance and the other may be priority. But the intention is fragmented because it doesn't feed into the next step of that support system. Say, for instance, everybody might have an email or a phone line that you can call for immediately. So helpline, great, very nice. Then you might have a company, a committee in the company. Then you might have a policy, and all of them read very well. They're very comprehensive, but they are not together. So there is no coordination. There is a separate system that is a helpline. There is a separate one handling policies, and there's a separate team that is a committee. Now, when we are talking of this fragmented benevolence, you want to move away from that very intentioned, standalone initiative to see how these initiatives are comprehensive, coordinated, and form a support system that is integrated. Now, this integrated support system is the helpline. I might call the helpline first, but immediately the committee gets to know about it. Or maybe the counseling center or the counseling person knows about it and says, so-and-so will be calling you for maybe trauma counseling. We don't know. The person's already ready. This person also knows that I do not have to go through the entire story again. I just have to say, Aparna ma'am asked me to talk to you. Okay. So, would you like me to now come and meet with you? Because you may not be comfortable coming to meet counselor. Everybody will look at me and say, why do that? Why do a counselor? But can't the counselor go there? It's okay, because those are spaces we want to say to make the employee or the staff comfortable. So there is a requirement for a coordination that is comprehensive and integrated with everybody talking to each other.
Yeah.
The system is there in place. You have your committee in place. You have the initiative which was taken, say, just by QuestCorp. Fantastic. But if you can talk about it to others, they may also learn. But this is required. Where you're talking of a helpline, you're talking of a counselor, you're talking of sometimes the POSH committee may not be able to extend a lot of other support. Is the POSH committee attached, associated, or networking with another CSO group outside to say, hey, somebody from my company requires 3 days shelter, right? When would I give you the shelter? Somebody might ask, oh, your company, everybody's earning very well here. Tell them to go and stay in one of the hotels. Not all women are comfortable going and staying in a hotel. Maybe many times I don't have relatives where I can go and stay. Or maybe I have, finished my stay with relatives. I can't go back over there again. So is there a place which is a safe place, where the person can go stay there and come to work also? Some of the shelters will not take you in with your children. Can we have a space where there is a shelter that takes you in with the children? So I would now, even without you asking me, want to enter into this space of asking huge companies like Questcorp invest in a little more beyond that ambit of CSR, where I'm supporting 5 things or 6 things, but I'm not supporting something where my staff itself might have that support outside. Because here you're doing everything over here, and then you are doing, okay, my community, let me grow more plants, I clean the lake, paint the school, see that children's education is taken care of, health is taken care of. Very good, because that is required. That's how my nation will be built. But I also want to say that this safety, this feeling of safety, respect, and dignity for my staff happens outside there also. And I will now go one more step further. I know I am now fantasizing. So it's not just the staff in your office, but maybe third party. They may not be directly coming into your office, but there are women and men out there who may be in requirement and need of this kind of a support. So can we extend that support to them? And that is how we need to build an integrated support, maybe concentric circles. So there is one circle here of Quest where you have these 3 things. You have a helpline, you have a speak up, and you have an IC, and all very robust, maintaining everything the law is asking them. You're non-judgmental, you're confidential, you're going out of your way proactively to ensure that feeling of safety, respect, and dignity. But shouldn't stop here. Should you not have a little more out there? And everything said and done, do I not need to feel safe out there on the street before I enter your office here? And in the same way, if I'm going out to my home, all the way to my home, should I not be safe? So that is something that I would love you to be able to translate with your management and the CSR, because you're also in a position to influence other companies and other CSR. And we don't have that kind of an advocate in the regular CSO society. The government will tell you something because they want to tell you. And you will do some CSR because you have, there is a requirement that you must do. But can you go beyond that to make this feeling of safety truly real for people inside and for people outside? Maybe your own people, but even outside. Because one more minute, I wanted to just share that maybe Quest can be the trailblazer to also share this message and information that it should always be courage to be able to speak up. Because this courage is what helps me to strengthen safety and dignity, but also responsibility over indifference. Nothing's happened to me, but should I talk about it? What will you think about me? How does it matter what anybody thinks about you? What matters is what you think about yourself. Because if you think you're strong and you're courageous, then safety follows all the time. If there is one statement or one thing that you would want to share with our employees so that they will have the courage to speak up, what would it be? At Quest, what I have found is a very, very deep commitment to confidentiality and neutrality, which is very, very critical when such cases come before the IC. But I have also noticed that there is clear documentation and there is a lot of care and dignity extended to critical cases because due process is followed. When you follow due process, it is a message that is going across that you will be heard in all fairness, irrespective of what is your cadre or your position. And the message that I want to give is, yes, continue this at Quest. And remember that you will be heard fairly. You would be heard without judgment. and your cases are tried, looked into, and inquired in a very, very sensitive manner. And that is the most important, because that's where you get the courage to speak. Thank you.